Today, I would really like to discuss color temperature and the importance of making the decision on whether your painting is going to be mostly cool with a few warms or mostly warm with a few cools. And this is every bit as important as the compositional decision. Is it going to be mostly darks with a few lights, or vice versa? Is it going to be mostly light with a few darks? These are really crucial decisions that we must make to create a dynamic composition. And since we're mostly talking about color in this course, I would really like to emphasize and take a little deeper dive into how you think about color temperature. And we'll start out with our standard color wheel. And you'll see, if you'll notice on your color wheel, there's a division right down the center, like so, that just literally divides this thing in half. So you have your cool colors on one side and your warm, as defined as warm colors, on the other side. And take particular note where it starts, in the yellow greens. Yellow green is considered usually, these are not really hard and fast rules, but they are general principles. And we do well to really pay attention to them and to utilize them. You'll notice that the cool starts with yellow green, and it moves around through the spectrum down here into a violet. And you notice red-violet is now the beginning of a warm chroma, a warm color in the kind of coolish range, isn't it? And this is where a lot of confusion kind of often crops up. Because if you just think of when we talk about red-violet, well, it's got red in it. Red's warm on the warm scale, so therefore we'll consider it a warm color. And this is not necessarily an oversimplification, but it kind of is, because you say, well, how about something that falls right into this middle range over here? There's really a violet, but kind of has a little red to it. Well, there's a built-in fudge factor here. So it's going to depend on the other colors that you place around it. The adjacent colors are going to enhance its warmness or coolness. So these are all things to really keep in mind. But if all else fails, troops, go back to your color wheel, and in fact, I'd suggest even drawing a line through the middle of it like that with a marker, so that there's no doubt in your mind when you're doing your planning. These color wheels are kind of like a circular slide rule, if you will, for color. And so they're incredibly helpful. I've been doing this for 50 years, and I've got color wheels all over the studio. So, because it just, whether it's a comfort factor like a box of chocolate, I know it's always there. I can have a piece of candy if I want it, but it's also just further, it's one of those things. If there's a question, go back to the basics, and this is as basic as you can get for color temperature. So we'll look at some examples, and I'll point out some specific things here. First couple are Russian painters. I'm not sure. I don't have their names, but they're great examples. And they'll say, well, of course, snow paintings. Yeah, duh. Everybody can see that. Well, yeah, and that's why I'm using a couple snow paintings here to start off with, because it really emphasizes the point. You see immediately all these wonderful, cool blue grays, blue violet grays down here. It's predominantly cool, isn't it? We'll say a 60-40 approximately. So approximately 60% of this is cool with the blues, and the other 40% of the yellow oranges. So basically it's a complementary arrangement, isn't it? But I don't want to really get into that at this point. I just want to emphasize warm and cool, and the decision this painter made to make this 60% cool and 40% warm. Really refined thinking in terms of color, and you see how effective it is. And we will look at some more subtle things, and I'll point out some of these aspects. Here's another really, I mean, these are beautiful paintings. These are contemporary Russians, as far as I know. That school in primarily in Kiev, which is unfortunately undergoing some problems right now, but that's one of the really great schools in Russian painting, where they're teaching traditional painting. And boy, I mean, these people are well founded. These artists are well grounded in color theory, values, composition, drawing, you name it. I mean, brushwork, application of paint, what makes a good painting. And you'll say, well, wait a minute, there's this warm note down here in this area. How's that work? Well, that goes back to what I was saying a moment ago about everything being relative. Let's explore this for a second. I'm going to take a section of this warmer passage, and we're going to compare it. We'll take this piece and we'll compare it to, look at the sky. You see how that's a real high key yellow, sort of a it's a coolish yellow, little bit on the blue side, but a warmed blue. Now you see, when you squint down, you see how cool, and you also see how dark that is against that sky, don't you? But down here, where it's in its proper juxtaposition with the colors, surrounding colors, it looks warm. Well, that's just a masterful use of a warmer gray, this blue violet gray that this artist is using. It's just a warmer version of it, but yet it stays in its proper place in the painting, doesn't it? When you put it up there, you see again how cool that really is. And just by warming that, whoops, I'll have to go back to another, we will get rid of this. By warming that, let me deselect there. By saying this is basically the mother color, and that's a number of you have been asking, well, what is a mother color? In this particular instance, this mother color would be this blue, and that would be, normally we'd mix up a big pool of it, a big pile of it on the palette, and then we can come in and modify it, or as some painters like to say, bend it, by taking a little bit out of this pool and adding a little bit of orange to it to indicate this reflected light that's being reflected back off of the light struck areas into a cut bank in the snow. You don't really need any more information. The viewer doesn't need any more information than that reflected light in that cut bank of snow to understand that, yeah, it's a part of a road. It's a path that's been plowed or shoveled, and it's a vertical surface. And the artist is explaining all that with temperature changes, but staying within the main key of this whole beautiful big blue area here. This is probably more like a 70% cool and 30% warm, isn't it? And it's really important, guys, to analyze paintings, good paintings, when you look at them, so you explain to yourself, what makes this such a great painting? What makes this so effective? What is it that strikes that chord with, for me? And that's the whole process of learning here, and using these right now. We're talking about color temperature, but using those color temperatures to really tell the story. Again, look at this beautiful reflected light on the top of this roof. Now, that just tells you that, again, there's a vertical surface, and the horizontal surface is being affected from the sky, the blue sky overhead. And you can see how effectively this artist uses it to turn surfaces, to explain the topography of the subject without getting into fussy drawing and delineating this edge down here. it's being delineated with temperature. And that's why this is just such a powerful tool. And we need to understand how it works and how to use it. Let's go to this next painting here. This is a friend of mine, Robert Lemler. Tremendous painter, mainly a figure painter, but also a wonderful landscape painter. And you'll notice this is heavily keyed to the cool, isn't it? I mean, really, the blue greens. And yet I would say he has bent the color a little bit with this yellow up in here. And we can see when we compare, you say, well, you know, it's overall, it's cool. Well, no, it's not really overall cool. If we take a little section of the sky, we'll do the same thing here. We'll move it around so we can compare it to, say, down here. See how much brighter, how much warmer that is? Now, this is where, if we go back to the yellow-green, you see there, that's classified as a cool color, but because it's in relation to the colors around it, now it becomes the warmest color in the painting, isn't it? So this depends so heavily on comparison. Compared to what? This is warm, or this particular yellow green, or very high key yellow green, is we'd say, well, yeah, but it's supposed to, that's in the cool range. No, it's cool compared to this. No, now it's warm compared to this, isn't it? Over here in these blues, look at this. Everything throughout. And Bob's a master at color usage this way. He's just, I mean, this is such a sophisticated thought process. And it's also a very brave step to say, well, I'm going to restrict this painting to blue greens and yellow greens and see if I can pull it off. It's a challenge for yourself. And you have to, once you make that decision, it's incumbent upon you to keep the faith all the way through and stretch those colors as far as you possibly can. You'll be so pleasantly surprised when you come up with a result like this and you see what you can actually do with a very restricted palette and playing these temperatures off each other. Let's go to another friend of mine here, Peggy Kroll. Peggy's just one of the best. She has such a highly refined eye when it comes to figure painting. And oftentimes these are one of their daughters poses for Peggy. And she's a great figure painter. She's also a great landscape painter. But you see her highly simplified way of breaking the space up and of designing with the figure. And this one, you say, well, I don't know, that face looks pretty hot in there. The figure is, when you squint down, this figure is a 90% shadow and 10% light. The only light struck areas that occur in here, the only lights are here, obviously, this little filtered light that's kind of skipping down across the figure and across the legging here. You see there? And a couple little spots of light down here, up here. This is such an elegant thought. Peggy just always amazes me with the sophistication of her color, of her designs, of her simplification. Now let's take this little sunspot right here. You say, well, that face looks pretty warm to me. Let's put that against that face. Now, you see how cool that looks? That's kind of a grayish, purplish, kind of a reddish violet. Again, reddish violet, supposedly on the warm side. Not in this case, is it? It just works beautifully, and it tells the story. Peggy's so good at doing this. Now we'll go to another friend of mine, Bill Anton. Bill's a tremendous painter. And I mean, the guy, there's another fellow, just just has such a refined sense of color and values and textures and brushwork. I apologize. This is kind of a fuzzy picture, but image here. But it was the best I had at the moment. But you can see here, okay, this is predominantly a warmer painting, isn't it? With all these yellows in here, all these wonderful yellows, and again, a shot of yellow green in here. Give my brush back. This yellow green in here, but in relation to everything around it, it's warm, isn't it? I mean, we can take a journey through this painting and say, well, wait a minute, it's warm because of this wonderful blue-gray that he put back here that keys the entire painting. So you can say, well, I don't know, yellow-green's supposed to be on there, and here we got a red-violet. Well, yeah, the red-violet's in the warm range. Yellow-green, I don't know about that. And some of these grays down here get pretty cool looking, don't they? Well, let's do a little comparison here. We'll take a little piece of this wonderful blue-gray back here. Let's move it into there. Now, which one is warmer? It's immediately is that wonderful comparison compared to what? Down here, look at that. Now that begins to look really hot down here on the shadow side, which normally you think, well, that's cool. It is cool, but it is part of the entire warm statement that Bill's making here. So it's, again, that's that compared to what? You could see the same over here. I mean, it becomes obvious once you do this, is you can see, oh yeah, that's immediately, that's a warm. So you're gonna say, oh my God, you just keep repeating yourself over and over. Yeah, I know I do, because I want you to see these things, and I want you to understand how crucial they are for making having a visual statement that has visual impact to it, to the viewer. The viewer immediately wants to explore this further. This is another good friend of mine, Josh Elliott. Excellent painter. And you can see, well, gee, this is a completely cool painting. I mean, everything's cool. Again, cool compared to what? Yeah, it's predominantly cool, but let's look again at some of these up here in the foreground where you would certainly expect to see your warmer colors, like in here. He's definitely added very low-key, darker warms in here, and that really sets the stage for the rest of the painting. And that's one of the reasons I left the white border on the top and bottom here, as you can see just how dark the sky really is on this overcast, very I would say a drizzly day, probably very wet day, which you can see immediately. I mean, he's picked up these reflections of the sky in the ground plane, which tells you, yeah, this is wet. This is, or is it some very light snow flurries? But it's an extremely atmospheric day, isn't it, guys? Let's take a little section of this mass right here and move it around. You can see immediately how much warmer it is. It really is. It's not as cool as you think it is it? Down in here. I mean, you can really compare these things and get a sense of how warm that. I mean, that's a really deep, rich orange in there, that red orange, and he just does a masterful decisions on how subtle to keep these things and make them read. It just has such great visual strength to it as a composer, as a colorist, and you notice the values throughout that are so beautifully done. Oops, I've lost my pointer here because I've got to go in here. Whoops. Bear with me, guys. Let me get rid of this. there. But you notice in here where the overlaps are that tie the foreground, midground to the background. That is such a sophisticated thought process to look for those. You know how I'm harping at you all for, raise that element up, raise that mass up so you create an overlap, so you create space. This is all about creating those spatial relationships. And in this particular one, we're doing it with color temperature, and you can see how effective that is. Look at another one. This is again one of Robert Limler's paintings, and this one is very obvious. You can really see again that color relationship. And you think, wow, those are all red rocks in there, and yet yeah, they're all red rocks, but this is an illusion. That's part of that red rock surface or the form, isn't it? But I mean, obviously, we compare it to this, and you can see how cool that really is. And Bob's a master, even with his figures. He can create space. You see how much cooler that background is than this midground, and yet you see how cool that midground is compared to that real solid color note right in the foreground. You see how he's gradated that color back in there. It's just really, really elegant thinking. What am I doing there? I want to deselect there. So once again, you can just see how useful this tool is. And we'll wrap this up with another friend of mine, T. Allen Lawson. And Tim likes to work with a lot of really subtle color and oftentimes very intimate views of the landscape, selection of the way he selects his subject matter. And and your first inclination is, well, this is all very warm. I mean, this is a very warm painting. The color of the sky. It's an evening. Is the title name of this is A Rapid Approach of Evening. And you've experienced those if you stand out there in nature and really observe just as it's getting to be twilight and how subtle that light really is. And again, let's just do that same thing and take a section of this. This looks like it's pretty warm down in here, when in reality it's quite cool. And let's take this and move it up into that real subtle warm passage. You see how gray and cool that is? See how effective that is? Especially up here, and you see how and when you first look at that, you think, wow, the shadows down in here are really subtle. They're not that dark. But you put them up here against the light struck, oh yeah. And this would be that light plane down in here. You see again how dark that really is. Put this over here. And go back to our brush. So when we look at these, you say, well, that's all pretty high key, and it sort of is. But then, boy, when we compare it to the light struck area, again, Jim's a master with values and color temperature, and really subtle color. So with that, we'll wrap up this deliverable. And as I'm always requesting, I hope this generates questions and discussions within our group, because it's part and parcel of the mastery of color, and really bending color to your use to fulfill an exciting concept you have. And I hope you found this invaluable. So let me know.
Hi, I'm Skip Whitcomb. I'll be conducting a mentoring course on color harmony. In over 40 years of teaching, color seems to be one of the biggest mysteries. We'll be able to spend a year together developing a reliable foundation for making harmonious color decisions. There are certain irrefutable truisms in painting. One is the fewer colors used, the stronger and more harmonious the statement. Economy of color equals clarity of intention. Respected painters, past and present, understood this concept and have employed it in one form or another. We will explore the power of a limited palette, calculating progressive sequences of 3 to 6 colors, referred to as harmonic chords, and explore how to select the best color set to serve our concept. The goal is to give each artist a reliable foundation for making color decisions, for developing personal expressions of color. Hope to see you in the course.